Welcome everyone to another episode of Slasher Scotty. I am your host Scotty McCoy, and boy do I have a surprise for all of you. I am grateful that my literary agent Eric Miller has put me in touch with Alan Howarth, and he is the musical composer of Halloween's 2 through 6. He did some sound design in that for it as well, and he's also we're going to be using this interview for my next book, Trick or Treat, the ultimate quiz on Halloween. Hey, Alan, how are you doing?
Hey, doing good, Scotty. Thanks for being with me today and bring me on your show.
Not a problem. I'm so glad we can make this happen. I owe a lot of gratitude for Eric. He's been a huge help for me to get this book out and set up some interviews. And,
Hmm.
this is going to be great. Yeah. So, the first question I got for you is, how did you get your start into being a musical composer and sound designer?
Um, it was not planned at all. Again, it's somebody knew somebody who knew somebody. My first uh, a quick trace. I'm from the Cleveland area. I was a rock and roll guy. I played in some of the most popular bands at the time. We were produced by a fellow named Bill Simzik, who went on to produce the Eagles. Joe Walsh is a good buddy from all that stuff. And then that activity, I was always drawn to synthesizers and equipment and stuff like that. And so I started a little synthesizer shop in Cleveland, as odd that would seem. My customers were Trent Reznor and all kinds of rock bands and stuff like that. Through that, I wound up hooking up to a jazz band called Weather Report, and became their keyboard synthesizer guy to set up, because Joe Zawinul, an older gentleman, and he was not technically versed, but he was amazing at the black and white notes. So I was like the butler. Well, that got me to L.A. Another L.A. Another Ohio buddy then moved to L.A. and he was working at Paramount Pictures, and he was in a transfer bay, so they're making just copies of tapes and stuff like that. Two characters are behind him, a fellow named Steve Flick and Richard Anderson, and they're having a conversation how they need somebody who knows about synthesizers. So my buddy Pax turns around and goes, "Oh man, you got to talk to my buddy Alan, man. He works for Weather Report." And they look at him and they go, "Weather Report, is that the one at 7 o'clock or 11 o'clock?" They're thinking meteorology. But
Right.
nonetheless, they took my number. I went down. I met them, and they said, "Well, we're starting on Star Trek: The Motion Picture."
Awesome.
So that was the time when Star Trek was no longer TV; it was going to be made into movies, and they were looking for what would now be sound designers. At the time, it was just somebody to make special sound effects. That's what was my title. But I made them an audition tape. They asked for an audition tape, and one of the auditions was to make the sound of the Starship Enterprise going from warp 1 to warp 7. So it was like there was a scene where the Enterprise is going to accelerate. I made this little tape on my little dining room 4 track and a Prophet 5 synthesizer, which actually still, my buddy's back here. He's
Nice.
still with us. That guy down there, Prophet 5. Hey, buddy.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
one
really
of the
cool.
originals. So anyway, I made him in this sound effect, and that became the sound of the Enterprise. So
Nice.
that put me in the movie business, uh, being a sound effects person for the first Star Trek movie. Well, I went on to do Star Trek 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 because I was the Enterprise guy.
Right.
So anything to do with hardware, I was back for that. Well, the interesting thread is the picture editor from Star Trek: The Motion Picture, a fellow named Todd Ramsey. His next movie was Escape from New York.
Oh, nice.
So I had been giving him my tapes, promoting myself and stuff like that, and so he was then working with John Carpenter, and he said, I think you and John would get along great. You should meet him. So Todd arranged to have John Carpenter come out to my little Star Trek dining room studio in Glendale, and we sat around and played sounds and talked. And at the end of the meeting, he goes, "Yeah, let's do it."
Nice.
Now I'm
Nice.
a composer, so a lot of gratitude to John Carpenter. But it worked out great because he had the movie and all his talent. I had the synthesizers in the studio. So initially, I was the studio guy. I mean, my job was to keep everything working and in tune, and it was it
Yeah.
was all analog, clunky patch cables and craziness. But at the same time, I was a musician, and he allows people to grow. So he let me kind of start to chime in and add on and really produce the synthesizer part of the whole thing.
Right.
So that was Escape from New York. Well, then at the end of that Escape from New York mixing session, I'm sitting with John, and we're kind of tuning up a lot of things. And he looks at me and goes, "Hey, Alan, I'm going to be busy on this next movie, The Thing. So they want to make a sequel to Halloween, so you're going to do Halloween." So he just like handed off Halloween to me and said, "Well, here you go." You know.
Nice.
So he was too busy anyhow. So I went on to do Halloween 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as the other guy, let's say. So Halloween 2, John wasn't there, but I used John's original score as the model and made Halloween 2 and overdubbed and made it more gothic and changed the textures. And then when it came to Halloween 3, John came back in the studio because he wanted to play. You know,
Right.
so we did Halloween 3 together, and the score is actually still holds up very well. The movie itself was bashed because it didn't have Michael Myers in it. But at
Right.
the time, Carpenter's idea was, well, let's break away from Michael Myers. Let's start doing Halloween movies that are about Halloween events. And
Right.
every year we could have a different anthology, et cetera, et cetera. So that Halloween 3 was the first of the experiments. But everybody went, what happened to Michael Myers? Where'd he go? So at that point, John says, I had enough of this. So he handed over back to Mustafa Akkad, and that's the Trancas people, and they're the ones that still manage the franchise,
Right.
and it still keeps going. And golly, they're going to have another one this year.
I know. And then there's one right after that next year.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't kill it.
Exactly. So like, what was it like collaborating with John Carpenter on Halloween 3?
Uh, I remember him coming in and into the studio, and he brought me the latest records, LPs, because it was before any of this other stuff. This would be 1983.
Yeah.
Played me the latest Tangerine Dream music, and then he looked at me, and he was very pleased with what we had done at Escape from New York, and he says, "Alan, this is going to be really easy. All we got to do is rip ourselves off.
Right.
Just keep doing what we're doing. Let's have fun with the synthesizers." And so the first cue that we dialed up is that what we call Cherries or Pumpkins, that sort of the chase in the beginning.
Yeah.
So that was the first cue of Halloween 3, which was all sequencing. So I pretty much set up and dialed up the sequencing and kept recording it. He just kept nodding and going, "Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool." So that was my first sort of big stroke of making a score
Right.
for one of the Halloween movies, because I didn't have to inherit dun 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 dun
Right.
over and over again. And that just sort of launched that movie, and we had a lot of fun. But it was always very casual. It was just two guys. We're the same age. He's from Kentucky. I'm from Ohio. So we've had a lot of the same cultural backgrounds and experiences and viewpoints. And it
Yeah.
was just always fun. It was always fun.
So, well, like with Halloween 3, like we know there was no Michael Myers. Did you know that like bringing back Michael Myers at the time, a lot of people wouldn't agree with that, or what were you thinking at the time? Like, did you think much of it, or?
No, well, as far as Carpenter was concerned, they killed Michael Myers at the end of 2.
Right.
So it was done.
Yep.
And then, so like I said, it was going to launch into Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, Halloween 4, who knows what, Samhain, and back to this, and each would be a Halloween centric movie, but they'd explore different themes and stuff like that.
Right.
But at the end of it, the producer said, "Well, wait a minute, everybody wants Michael Myers. We don't want to do this." So they sort of said, "Okay, well, fine, do what you want to do." And John went on to do other stuff, and they kept Michael Myers alive.
Yeah.
And even John admits now, he says, "I guess I was wrong. I guess there was I guess there was still some more life in that
Yeah.
character."
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the end of 2, Michael Myers, he was dead. Like, I mean, he did catch on fire. He was engulfed in flames, and he dropped down. And same with Dr. Loomis. He was in that explosion.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it was the end of it. I mean, it was supposed to be the end of it technically at the end of that. I personally like Halloween 3. I really do enjoy that film. And the score is really good. Like, I really enjoy it.
Well, if you take Halloween and you would just call it Season of the Witch, it'd be fine.
Yeah, a lot of people
But
wouldn't associate it with Michael Myers.
right, exactly. And then as a standalone, it's got its own traction. It's got its own life.
Yeah,
I know I play concerts, and I put the Halloween 3 music in the concert as some of the best music that we did. So, and people enjoy that. So,
that's awesome. It really is cool. I do love, like I said, I love Halloween. The score is really cool. And it's different from like the original Halloween theme. So that it gives it its own breath, its own life.
yeah, it was a change. It was an almost Halloween, but not
Right.
Halloween Michael Myers.
Exactly.
And then we
So,
got to Halloween 4.
mhm,
And now, so Mustafa Akkad says, "Well, we're going to make some more." I get the call, "Hey, you want to do the music?" So I actually, literally, we were working on Big Trouble in Little China at the time, and we're in the studio, and I says, "Hey, John, I got a call from from those guys. They want me to do this thing." I wanted his blessing. I didn't want to be sneaking
Right.
around and
Absolutely.
have him find out I was doing. So he says, no, no, do what you want, man. He says, I'm done with that stuff.
Mhm.
Go for it.
Yeah.
So then I became the composer of Halloween 4, 5, and 6. Of each had a different director and a different little twist
Mhm.
on how they were going to make their Halloween better than the last one. And
Mhm.
then obviously that went through a series of Halloween 7 and Halloween HTO, what it was HTO, and there's an 8
H2O
and
Resurrection. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And they got farther and farther away from
Yeah.
the spirit of what Halloween was, but now Blumhouse had this great idea of some way to resurrect the franchise and just basically say there was no sequels. We're just going right from the
Zero.
Halloween
Yep.
1 to where we're at now, 40 years later. And
Right.
so
Now, have you seen the 2018 version?
actually, I haven't. I need to sit
Okay.
down. I listened to the score that John did a great job. He's working with Cody and Daniel, which is his son and his godson, and three of them have the band. They've been out touring, so he always treasured his music as valuable. But a lot of people didn't give him credit. Like, how could he be the director and still write his own music? What's that all about? But you know, Carpenter's music is extremely simple,
Yeah.
and for a lot of musicians the the lack of complexity uh, makes them think it has no value, but he's got the minimalist touch. He
Yeah.
only does a little bit, but it works, and so
Absolutely.
that's something I definitely. I was very privileged to be in the studio with him for 8 movies, and you know, be a collaborator, whatever you want to say, in the studio. Watch him do his thing, and then share in that experience and learn from him how to write music for movies from a dramatic standpoint.
Yeah.
Where do you put the music? Where do you stop the music? I mean, one of the themes was let the actors act. If the actors are doing a good job, don't give them any music, but let them just do that.
Yeah.
But then we're going to do transition. We're going to go someplace new. We're going to go to a new scene. Want to set a new mood. Carpenter said one time, he said the music was the director's velvet glove.
That's a very good point. A very good
That's how you touch your audience without them know they're being touched.
yeah.
Through the
Yep.
music.
And the music that can make or break a movie. Literally, like it can make or break a movie. The music, the
Oh,
sound, the audio, all that.
yeah, and sometimes the composer does too much. When
Yep.
you start noticing the music, you're not doing a good job.
Yeah.
All it is, you're supposed to go on the ride that's been created for this hour or 90 minutes and just be sucked into it and care about the characters and go up and down and get scared and not scared and have sympathy or excitement or whatever. And that's the musical's the bed. It lives on itself. It's not supposed to be a thing. I mean, every now and then there's a montage scene where it's like a music video where the music it's all about the music and you have
Right.
just these the scenes going through. That's the exception rather than the rule.
Right. So was there a reason why you didn't come back for like Halloween H2O and Resurrection and all that?
Well, I think it is now a regime change, right? New director, John Ottman was the film editor, and he wanted to score it. And actually, he did score it orchestrally, and then it got tossed out, and they went back to the Scream guy and used literally cuts from Scream. So there was a bit of a creative
Yeah.
moment there on Seven. So I'm kind of glad I missed it because I would have probably done similar to what he did, just reworking the Halloween themes
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
or whatever. But Ottman's a night guy; he's still around. And then after that, you know,
Right.
we carry on. I
Right.
still I made soundtrack albums or CDs, I guess now, of all that music, and that still lives on YouTube and Spotify and Pandora, just as the music. An interesting note: I remember when we were finishing Escape from New York, and
Mhm.
I said they want to make a soundtrack album of the music, and John says, "Really? Somebody would want to listen to that?" I went, "Yeah, yeah, it's good music." So he said, "Okay, well, do what you want." So he was always very he's not a hands-on um, micromanager, right?
Right.
He wants people to do their thing and do it well, and just check in with me. He told me one time. He says, "Alan, it's really easy to be a director." He says, "You only need to know 2 words: yes and no, and that's
Good
it.
point. Good
Yes, I
point.
like it. No, I don't like it. He says, don't give people, give it to me both ways and I'll decide later. You're just making more work for everybody.
Right.
And he says, even if you say no today and it's yes tomorrow or vice versa, that's okay.
Right.
But you are the director. You're giving direction to the whole project. So you want to be directing
Absolutely.
and not sit in the audience and try to decide what's going on.
Absolutely.
You know, so there's a lot of wisdom that he shared with me that I take with me, you know,
I
for
know
the rest of my days.
usually during like the Halloween season, like I'll have on YouTube on my phone and I'll just listen to all the Halloween themes back to back to back on loop, like for every single one as I fall asleep. Just something to listen to I don't know, it just soothes me. I love it, especially during the spooky season. It's just something I enjoy.
Well, it still holds up. I would have never envisioned in 1981, 82, 83 that you and I would be on a computer having a video conference still talking about that music.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's withstood the test of time, so I guess it goes into
Yeah.
the forever bin, you know.
Absolutely. Exactly. So was there like a was there a hard part or something that you, I guess, came across that was difficult when making any of the sound bits or any of the music or any of that stuff for any of the movies?
The one that was most challenging was Halloween 6.
Okay.
And that was because the director made his version of Halloween, but the Weinsteins were involved.
Mhm.
And so once we finished the first version, which finally got released as, quote, the producer's cut, and
Mhm.
I scored the movie once, and now it was time to go back and amp it up. They wanted it to be more exciting, more, just give me
Yeah.
more scary, more everything. So I really went back and added a lot of rock and roll to the score. So I actually scored that one twice.
Oh, nice.
And now even the director's got, he's being managed remotely by the Weinsteins in New York, so everything's got to be previewed and, you know, somebody's messing with it. So that was a challenge just to outdo myself one more time.
Yeah.
But it came out good. Yeah.
Yeah. It
And
did. And I mean, you could tell the differences between the both. And I have read that the reason why they're so different is because the Weinsteins wanted it one way and, the director wanted it a whole new way, a different way.
yeah,
And
exactly.
like you can tell, like the last 30 minutes of the movie is completely different from each other. It
Yeah,
really,
yeah. I mean, yeah, they started messing with it. They quote knew better,
yep,
but it was their money, so they had a lot of influence.
absolutely. So, what was your most favorite Halloween film to work on for the score?
The most fun for, well, Halloween 3 was its own fun
Right.
because it was, but of the Michael Myers, for me the big experience was Halloween 4
Okay.
because that was the first time I was cut loose.
Okay.
Right. The only thing Mustafa called me up and he says, "Alan, I you just got to make sure I hear that Halloween theme every time I see Michael Myers. Other than that, go for it."
Nice.
You know. And so obviously the original Carpenter themes are established. You now got a franchise. You're going to hear those.
Yeah.
There's about 4 or 5 sort of standard pieces that you make the score out of, but now you're going to reorchestrate, resynthesize. In this case, give it different textures.
Mhm.
And so on Halloween 4, I really went into my rock roots. I was a big Pink Floyd guy,
Mhm.
and so I really took Pink Floyd-y influences and put that on Halloween music.
Nice.
And,
Nice.
and it's funny when I was, back to the Cleveland days, I was like the Pink Floyd of Cleveland at a time. I was
Awesome.
already in quadraphonic. We already had tape cues. I was a junior Floyder for the
Right.
area.
Nice. So the kind of piggyback off of what your favorite was, how about like the worst or the one that was the least fun for you to work on?
Mm, I always had fun. I guess the Halloween 5, the director really wanted to go, quote, back to Halloween and really focus on the piano.
Yeah.
So he sort of tied me down as opposed to cutting me loose. I guess that would be the unfun part of it, as opposed to, hey, you're great, go for it. No, I want this and I want that and I want that. And
Right.
and again, he was the yes no guy, right?
Right.
So he was doing what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was less fun, but none of it was a bummer.
Right. That's awesome. And I personally enjoy all the Halloween films, even like the ones that aren't the most popular, including like Halloween Resurrection and all that. Like I do
Hmm.
enjoy all of the Halloween films, like and the music to them, like they're all similar to an extent because they have that John Carpenter chord to it, like that piano to an extent.
Hmm.
And then, but a lot of them are also like they're enhanced by the composer, whether it's yourself or somebody else that was working on it. Like they all have
Yeah.
their own touch to it.
Yeah, and then obviously the Rob Zombie stuff at the end had a whole twist on it.
Yeah.
And that was Zombie and Tyler Bates. And he's gone on to be his own thing right now. So,
Yep.
so much like in some ways, Star Trek created a huge opportunity for a lot of people.
Mhm.
In some ways, Halloween did the same. It brought a lot of people a chance to take their at bat and do their thing, and then grow from there.
Right. So did you see all the Halloweens that you worked on?
Oh, sure.
Nice. Which one do you
You
think is your
can't.
favorite?
Uh, Separate from Michael Myers, I still like the Halloween 3.
Yeah.
It's really a lot of fun. In the Michael Myers world, 4 really gave it the good restart.
Yeah.
But then the Halloween 6 Weinstein version was another flavor
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah, they all have their own different formula to it. Like they,
Yeah.
they continue the story arc, but they still went into its own direction.
Hmm.
Like even with Halloween 4, that was the start of the Curse of Thorn story arc, and it ends with Halloween 6. So
Yeah.
like they're its own storyline, but they still continue from Halloween's 1 and 2,
Hmm.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, he's a boogeyman. You can't kill him.
Right.
Um, Somehow, the doctor in the insane asylum, he gets out and does it again. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even like with Dr. Loomis, he never died until I guess you could say he died in at the end of Halloween 6, the theatrical version.
Yeah.
You can kind of take it that way. Depends how you look at it, because it was the last movie Donald Pleasence did because he died in real life, and like all you hear is his scream. So you think, did Michael Myers get him? So you can kind of, I guess, assume that Michael got him there. But if you watch the producer's cut, he's not dead.
No, they wasn't planning on ending it. I mean, you've got this. I'll call it a franchise because that's what they call it. You've got this character, you've got a title, you got what he does. It's the knife and the mask are the big iconic. You do that every time you got a Halloween movie.
Yeah,
So yeah, they had intent to just keep making them, and here
absolutely.
we are.
Absolutely. And yeah, I actually have a not really a replica, it's more of a hard rubber, but the Michael Myers Halloween 2 knife here. I used it I got it off Amazon, and I used it in one of my indie films, but but it's actually pretty sturdy. It's pretty
That's
good quality.
that's extra large there. That's a big
Yeah.
one.
Absolutely. It's just hard, like a hard rubber kind of thing to it. It's
Uh
pretty
huh.
good. So the last question I got for you is, do you have any other projects that you have in the works, that you're doing any type of music or sound for, that you would like to promote to the listening and viewing audience?
Sure. A couple things to check out. I did a movie about a year and a half ago called Hoax, Hoax. New director Matt Allen. It was his first. He's been a assistant director for a career, but this is really his big love project. It's a Bigfoot movie,
Nice.
and it was interesting when he approached me. He says, "Alan, I don't want you to use any of that digital stuff. I want you to use all the analog stuff of the old days. I want what you did then one more time." So I got to do that for him, and that came out really well. Currently, there's one movie in the can that'll be called Cosmic Dawn. It's a movie uh, out of Toronto. It'll probably be released in the next within the next year,
Okay.
but still in the can. That's floating there. And currently, I'm working on one it's a little bit of a twist. I'm working with Sean Stone, who's Oliver Stone's son,
Oh, nice.
and this one's called The Best Kept Secret. And this is sort of it's a documentary for sure, but I'm amping it up
Okay.
sonically, and it explores this real world issue of how the elites have used children in very bad ways to manipulate stuff,
Nice.
financing and government and relationships, and touches on the Jean Benet and the Jeffrey Epstein and all this other stuff. So the challenge there is, in fact, I knew Sean because I worked on another project with him. I called him up and says, "Hey, Sean, I know what you're going there." He says, I've done evil for 40 years. I can do this," and he
Yeah,
agreed.
absolutely.
But when I started giving him the real dark side, no, he says we can't do that because we want regular people to be exposed to the information. There's a lot of people that just deny this exists,
Yeah.
So we're I don't want to say toning it down, but I'm shaping it to deal with the topic in a way that when you don't throw up at the end of it. You know,
Right.
you've taken the information and you start to consider, oh my God, this is real. You know, our lives have been changed because of what these people did, and it wasn't good.
Right.
And so it has chapters. So I just literally finished chapter 1 yesterday. I'm in chapter 2 now, and I think there'll be 5 chapters, and it's being sponsored by this guy 107. I don't know, you know who he is,
Okay.
and sort of this Robert Robert David Steele. These guys that are sort of the patriots. You know, behind the whole. You know, we need to really look at the election and what's going on here because we think this is not cool.
Yeah.
You know, so sort of that. I know it's conspiracy theory, but it's turning more into conspiracy fact
Right.
uh, rapidly.
Awesome.
You know, when we look at the data. So that's there. And then I just released a couple Alan Howarth collections,
Okay.
which are I'll call them still CDs, but they're all download now. But I released I took the COVID time to go into my archives and start making soundtrack albums of movies that never had soundtracks because there weren't that big of movie. But it's funny when I do a score, I don't ever downgrade my music. I'm still giving 100%. It's just that you may have a week or you may have 6 weeks, and that's what the difference is in the degree of production, how much you can do.
Yeah.
There's another one coming out called Basement Jack, that's good, and then another one called Brutal, which is a movie never been released by Michael Patrick Stevens. Has still been sitting in the can. He thinks he can do a better job, but it was a good job in the first time. So I'm just going to start releasing the soundtrack. So you know, like anybody, let's say you built 50 houses. Some are better than others, but you still built them all. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and so if people are interested in the other stuff I've done. And then I have another twist, which is different than scary. I have a pet project that I'm calling Natural Resonance.
Hmm.
And this is the idea of tuning music to different frequencies than what we use standard. I mean, there's a whole sort of A equals 432 club, and that's valid. But
Right.
I've gone, and normally it's 440, so it's detuned a little bit, and it's supposedly what it does is it tunes the music to be resonant to the physical world.
Right.
But now I'm working with a group called the Academy of Future Science, and the founder is a guy named Dr. J.J. Hurtak. He's a very famous author, and actually we've gone on field trips and measured the acoustic properties of all the Mayan pyramids.
Right.
I went to Egypt and I measured the Egyptian pyramids and the architecture, which was a field called archaeoacoustics, the acoustic properties of these sacred sites. Turns out they're all tuned to the same stuff.
Nice.
So the architects had what we'll call higher knowledge. They were onto something that was secret or occult, whatever, but it's the same stuff.
Right.
So my conclusion is that whoever made the third dimension, the experience we're having now, et cetera, I don't want to get too far beyond it, had a mathematical language that it's built on.
Nice.
And the core of that language is two ratios,
Hmm.
which in mathematics we call irrational.
Hmm.
One is pi, remember pi r squared,
Yep.
and the other one is called phi or phi, which is the golden mean.
Okay.
So 432 is the golden mean ratio musically, and then I have a group of pi frequencies that tune to the chakras.
All right.
So I'm evangelating this whole idea of how one musical artist should be aware of this because you could tune to the heart chakra, you could tune to the crown chakra, you could tune to the root chakra if you wanted to dance music. So there's something there, and how your response to the human responds to it, and this is sort of standardized. And then I'm also working on an app so you could retune all your favorite music to these frequencies as a matter of what you have on your phone. So if
Nice.
you have a favorite song, you could get more out of your favorite song by retuning it to one of your chakras or to your aura. So
Oh, nice.
I have a website called naturalresonance.net, and anybody wants to check that out. And
Awesome.
then also I have my web store, alanhowarth.com, and that's got all the stuff we're talking about.
Right.
And I sell CDs and LPs, and I have some books, music books, actual a manuscript of the scores written out,
Okay.
and I sign everything. So that's just sort of like for my fans. It's a place to reach out, and then watch for me. I'm looking forward to these conventions. You know, the Chiller and the Monster Mania and the, all this stuff that's all stopped. I can't wait for it to start again. Really had a lot of fun going to the
That's awesome.
conventions and
Can't
meeting
wait.
people.
That's awesome. Well, I thank you, Alan, for joining me.
Yeah, glad to good and good luck with the book and
Thank
the
you.
Halloween trivia. And if you want to come back and ask some detailed questions about uh, stumpers on score and how did this happen or what was that, I'll be glad to share with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I thank you, Eric, for setting this up and helping me get in touch with Alan so we can have him a part of the book. All right. So I thank you, Alan, so much. You have a great rest of your day and stay safe.
All right, Scotty.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.